Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 2 of the International Association of University Libraries Conference. My name is Jill Ben, and I'm the University Librarian at the University of Western Australia and a member of the current IATL board, and it gives me great pleasure to be chairing this session this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, depending on where you are located. I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands of where I'm located, the Wurundjeri Noongar peoples, and pay my respects to the elders and extend a special welcome to any Indigenous peoples joining us today. So we're going to get started straight away. We've got 3 fantastic presentations for you. The first one will be delivered by Shiobhan Smith. Shiobhan is the Research Support Unit Manager at the University of Otago Library. She's been a subject librarian prior to that role for a number of humanities departments, and she's also been involved in the development of data management planning tools and has an interest in research data management. Shiobhan also has knowledge and skills in a range of areas, including digital humanities, bibliometrics, and information literacy. And today, Shiobhan's going to be talking to us about the University of Otago Library Capability Framework. Thank you, Shiobhan.
Kia ora, everybody. Just bear with me for a second and I'll get my presentation started. Tēnā koutou. My name is Shiobhan Smith and I manage a research support unit for the University of Otago Library. My unit works in the areas of data management, bibliometrics, and manages services like the institutional repository. In other words, areas that have grown exponentially for academic libraries in recent years. This presentation is about a project I undertook throughout 2019 and 20 to collect data and build a framework to support capability building in my unit. In the next 20 minutes, I want to touch on the topics listed here. This is a lot of content, so be prepared for a bit of a whirlwind presentation. I'm always happy to be emailed afterwards about anything. The project also has an open science framework platform space with a wiki that you can visit for more information. The product of the project is the capability framework itself. Version 1 is live and I encourage you all to visit it after this presentation. In order to understand what the framework is trying to achieve, I first need to introduce you to 3 key concepts that influence the design and scope. Firstly, I adopted Lord Condensey's concept of inside out to determine what research support tasks the framework would address. Traditionally, academic libraries have focused on bringing outside scholarship into the university through journal subscriptions, book collections, and providing access to online databases. However, the Inside Out Library works to describe and disseminate scholarship from within the university back out to the world. Examples include digitising collections, supporting research data sharing, managing institutional repositories, running journals on open journal systems, and so forth. Many academic librarians support inside-out tasks to varying degrees. Their job titles are not always a good indicator of this. The framework therefore uses the concept of a researcher-facing librarian to try and capture most librarians working in this space. These librarians may be in generalist or specialist roles. They may be called research support librarian, data librarian, or scholarly communication librarian, and so forth, but inside-out services represent a significant proportion of their activities. Finally, there are already competency frameworks in this space. When examining the literature on capability and competency, I found that both terms were frequently used interchangeably. However, they are not the same, and it was important to understand this difference. I read extensively on the subject and spoke to researchers working in fields like management and human resources. However, it was an article from the discipline of nursing that really helped me solidify the difference between competencies and capabilities. So this is what I learned about competencies. Competencies describe the skills required for familiar tasks occurring in stable environments. They are less useful in dynamic environments and practice at an advanced level. Competency is a term that is sometimes, rightly or wrongly, associated with low-level vocational tasks that require little critical thinking. Where practice is complex and evolving, it is useful to have a framework that links competency learning to practice. A capability of framework explains the major domains of practice at an advanced level. Capability helps librarians to cope with new and unfamiliar situations. Capability is more than skills and knowledge, but includes values and self-efficacy. Capable librarians are lifelong learners and will continue developing their expertise and skill set long after leaving formal education. In practice, this means that the framework is not about listing specific tasks and how to do them. It is about better understanding the knowledge, skills and abilities that allow librarians to thrive at the advanced levels of a rapidly evolving area of librarianship. I'm not going to dwell on the methods used to gather data and build the framework. This is documented on the OSF platform. I also did a presentation on this at the 2021 Tato Gather and Grow Lianza Tertiary and Research Symposium, and that is available online for anyone wanting to watch. What you need to know is that the framework was built within a pragmatic paradigm where the central guiding principle was to use what works. 3 general approaches were used to gather the data: a survey instrument in spreadsheet format, a workshop at the 2019 IATL conference in Perth, and the collection of job descriptions for later analysis. The survey asked interested IATL members to name inside-out tasks they did and mapped into skills, knowledge and attributes. This will be referred to as the mapping exercise in this presentation. Analysis was mixed methods of combining qualitative and quantitative approaches, and at every step I tested assumptions with colleagues. The following slides will now present some of the interesting data findings I made during this process. Word frequency, that is the counting of how many times a word occurs, can produce some intriguing visualizations that I combined with close reading and thematic analysis to make sense of the data. This word frequency cloud contains the most mentioned words from the mapping exercise. It is a mashup of tasks, skills, knowledge and attributes. We can see that communication is mentioned more often than any other word. Service terms provide, managing and support are also prominent. This data reflects current inside-out library practices, so all these are happening or required now. In contrast, the IATL workshop asked participants to not just consider the current environment, but to crystal ball gaze into the near future and predict growth areas. It is therefore interesting that the associated word cloud gives more prominence to research technology heavy words like data visualization, research data management, computer and data mining. Also, the words partnerships, connections and relationships come to be of similar frequency to communication, which is still present, but a little bit diminished. The job description word frequency cloud is different again. Note that it will be biased towards English language job descriptions and positions from the Australasian region, reflecting my own limitations. To me, the most prominent words, develop and management, have a we need someone to get these services up and running type vibe. The mapping exercise data can be further broken down to tasks, knowledge and skills, and abilities and attributes. When you do this, an even more varied landscape of words emerges, with some interesting observations. For example, the idea of library work as being support work is articulated in the task data, with the word support featuring prominently once the knowledge, skills and attributes words are peeled off into their own categories. This reflects that most tasks listed often had support before them. For example, support ORCID, support publishing, support open access. How this aligns with calls in the literature to rebrand librarians as partners in research rather than supporters of researchers is an interesting thought. Should we get into the habit of saying we are a partner in publishing or a partner in managing data? Is the prominent use of the word support when we describe what we do problematic in developing truly collaborative relationships with researchers? In a similar vein, the nature of library work as information work is articulated in the knowledge and skills data, with the word requirements featuring prominently. In other words, librarians indicated that inside-out tasks required knowing information about copyright requirements, publishing requirements, funder requirements, and so forth. When it comes to abilities and attributes, the so-called soft skills are all dwarfed by communication. When you remove communication, you can get a better sense of what other soft skills were frequently mentioned. In a recently published CLIP report on the impact of AI on libraries, author Andrew Cox argues that these are the skills that computers are unlikely to reproduce and will become increasingly important in the library workforce. This data suggests a strong emphasis on researcher-facing librarians needing to be problem solvers, whether the problem is technical, informational, or people in origin. One of the questions this raises is how to create an environment that supports the development and nurturing of these traits. I know that in this I have been influenced by Brian Matthews' white paper, Think Like a Startup. So how did I use some of this word frequency data? I used them to help support building case studies. The data was also mapped into various themes. For example, these words were all associated with the broad theme of data. And this is an example of a case study. This describes the kind of task a fictional researcher-facing librarian, Naomi, is required to do at an advanced level in relation to research data. Related capabilities are listed in the blue box. Case studies service to illustrate how the capabilities can be mapped to the actual tasks researcher-facing librarians complete. The data used to create the framework also included information on levels of expertise required. Specifically, the mapping exercise asked the question, what level of knowledge and skills do you need to do this task well? Beginner, intermediate, advanced, for each task listed. These are the definitions provided to support a shared understanding of what was meant by beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Likewise, the following definitions were provided for what the expertise being measured was in. 3 categories were chosen: library and information science, LIS, domain discipline knowledge, and research technology. According to the data, across all inside-out services, most tasks required an intermediate level of LIS expertise or more, with the exception of digital scholarship. Interestingly, no one rated any bibliometric task at the beginner LIS level. As you will soon see, even in the domain and research technology categories, most bibliometric tasks are considered above the beginner level. This may have implications when recruiting early career librarians to these roles. This data suggests they will need more scaffolding to feel confident, even with the basic tasks, as those tasks may not actually be that basic. The need for domain expertise has a similar pattern in that most tasks require an intermediate level of domain expertise or more. This time it is within unique and special collections that no one rated any task at beginner level. Nearly half of the scholarly communication tasks require advanced domain expertise. A good example of where this advanced expertise is applied is when dealing with subject-specific repositories and their associated metadata. Research technology expertise surprised me, as I originally expected from the data to see more tasks that required advanced levels. However, with exceptions in scholarly communication and bibliometrics, as you can see, this wasn't the case. These results were especially surprising for research data management and digital scholarship, areas where I would have presumed advanced expertise in research technology would be an advantage. One possible explanation is that when a task requires advanced levels of research technology expertise, researcher-facing librarians either bring their expertise in from allied supporters, e.g. IT professionals, or do not offer services at that level. And that point leads nicely to data, also from the mapping exercise, that tells us who researcher-facing librarians turn to for help. When reaching out to internal colleagues, other people in the library, researcher-facing librarians are most likely to contact those working in information and outreach services, such as subject and liaison librarians. This is especially so for the area of scholarly communication. Research data management tasks will often see the researcher-facing librarians reach out to IT specialists and developers within the library. Again, don't find that so surprising. But perhaps the most interesting observation for me is the number of times senior librarians are asked for help. I think we need to acknowledge the important role of senior librarians and managers in supporting and mentoring. However, as Owen suggests in a recent article on imposter phenomenon and skills confidence, general librarianship skills and confidence do not always translate to skills and confidence specifically in these inside-out tasks. As many of this is still new to libraries, senior librarians also need opportunities to develop their own confidence and expertise. When researcher-facing librarians seek help beyond the library, academics feature strongly. External vendors are also sources of support, especially in the area of scholarly communication. Overall, there is a large and diverse pool of potential help that researcher-facing librarians feel they can tap into. So what is the product of all these diverse and interesting pieces of data? The capability framework itself is inspired by the Victorian Public Sector Commission Capability Framework. Like that framework, it is broken down into 5 categories. Each category contains the capabilities rated to that category and a definition of each capability. The capabilities are not listed in any hierarchical order. The framework is a thinking tool. It should never be used to try and recruit or train someone to have all capabilities to an advanced level. This person would be a purple squirrel, and they do not exist. Use it to support conversations about the capabilities needed to be successful. A manager may use it to recognise and fill capability gaps in their team. A researcher-facing librarian might use it to plan professional development. A trader might use it to set learning objectives. One way I have already used it is to support recruitment for a research services librarian. I mapped all interview questions to capabilities I was seeking to ensure candidates had the opportunity to demonstrate these. The framework is live and anyone can visit and use it in its current iteration. If you want to copy and play around with the capabilities, there is also a version on GitHub. The whole framework is licensed with Creative Commons. I would like to acknowledge some limitations with the framework as it currently is and potentially with the data collected. Firstly, the framework is a work in progress. Current data isn't able to provide more nuanced systematic mapping of capabilities to inside-out tasks. So I'm hoping that future development will include classifying capabilities further to better understand if some are more important than others, in which particular tasks, and at what level of expertise. A limitation that was expressed at the 2019 IATL workshop was the potential danger of the framework becoming obsolete very quickly, because it is trying to capture an area of librarianship experiencing rapid change. So you'll notice that in order to mitigate this, I have deliberately attempted to use wording that won't outdate quickly. For example, although frequently mentioned in the data, I have avoided using specific tools and names such as Scopus or Python. Instead, I've used generic terms such as knowledge of programming concepts or knowledge of key sources of bibliometric data and analytic tools. With the collection of data, particularly the mapping exercise, I used examples to further illustrate concepts, and we saw that earlier in the presentation. However, there is always a possibility that when providing data, librarians had different definitions or understandings that may have affected their answers in unexpected ways. I also want to acknowledge my role and my limitations. I'm a librarian with over 15 years' experience, the most recent in providing research support, and I believe my professional experiences are important and have allowed me to quickly understand and pull insights from the data. However, I also acknowledge that my perspective is shaped by many other factors, including my age, my ethnicity, education, my neurodiversity, and gender. So if you like what you have heard here today, and want to be involved, please visit the framework, snoop around, and complete one or more surveys. And thank you for being a part of this presentation. Nō rewa, tēnā koutou, katoa.
Thank you very much, Shiobhan. That was a fantastic presentation, and very much appreciate the work you've done and the fact also that you're sharing your capability framework with the community, and I do encourage attendees at this conference to engage with that. Unfortunately, we don't have any time for questions, but I would encourage the audience to add any questions they have to the discussion tab, which is you'll find a link to it on the right-hand side of your screen, and I'm sure that Shiobhan can monitor that chat and answer any questions as needs be. But please join me in thanking Shiobhan by using your like button.
Kia ora.
So, thank you. So our next speaker is Lingdan SONG, and Lingdan is a librarian at the Shanghai Jiao Tong University Library in China, and her current research interests include cultural economics and library resource acquisitions, and she's going to talk to us about the rise of creative class in library. Over to you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to present my paper, The Rise of Creative Class in Library, a Chinese Perspective. My presentation will cover the following aspects. Number 1, the introduction of 3T. Number 2, the creativity in Chinese libraries. Number 3, innovation against the COVID-19 pandemic in Chinese libraries. And number 4, rising or killing for library creativity. Part 1, 3T. Why some cities like Los Angeles, Boston, Washington are so creative that always capture the world's attention, while others lose their power of innovation, despite they have high-tech industries. Florida have discussed these questions in his book, The Rise of the Creative Class, and explained that 3T is the key factor to the creativity economics. They are technology, talent, and tolerance. It is easy to understand the important role of the first T, technology. The second T, talent, refer to the people who contribute to the creativity. Florida include the creative class, the writer, the dancer, the musician, and college graduates in his measurement of the talent at first. But then he updated the index counts only the creative class. Tolerant is the last and most overlooked T. Besides the diversity of forms or industries whose importance for economic has been widely recognized, Florida thought the different cognitive styles can foster the generation of creativity. The combination of 3T is essential for the sustainable growth of the region. The same goes to the library. Next, part 2, the creativity in Chinese libraries. First, I'd like to introduce the automatic mapping system between DDC and CLC. Dewey Decimal Classification is widely used around the world, but Chinese library classification is the most popular classification system in Chinese libraries, especially for Chinese paper book and journals. With the development of electronic technology, libraries have to reorganize huge quantities of data coming from different databases and platforms, most of which using DDC. The interoperability between DDC and CLC became the key point for the better reorganization and description for digital and print research resources for Chinese libraries. The system realizes the automatic mapping between these two classification systems and is used by more than 20 libraries in China, facilitating the electronic information organization and management. Next is the academic resource map. It is an innovative resource navigation system designed for Chinese libraries and patrons. There are three innovative points. Firstly, the resources is aggregated according to discipline classification of the Ministry of Education of China through automatic mapping technology, including 115 first-level subjects and 404 second-level subjects. Secondly, the refined results are displayed through sorting algorithm, so the most important and popular resources in the discipline can be recommended to the users. To give an example, click the economics, theoretical economics, political economics, and then select non-Chinese journals. The refined results are these. These results are reviewed in sequence according to the weight calculation of journal impact factor, downloads, citations, and SNP. The assessment index and algorithm is varied according to the resource type, the book, the journals, the proceedings. The third innovation point is the individualized service for the university. It shows the articles published by the universities according to the paper citation quality, and the journals cited by the university published by university. The articles published by university according to the sequence of algorithm. It is convenient for libraries to analyze the resource usage of the university in a specific discipline. Next is the people-oriented atmosphere and activities which can foster the creativity. Chinese libraries have experienced three stages: collection-centered, open access, and people-oriented. On the third stage, libraries pay more attention to people, try to build a friendly, open, and creative atmosphere. Living Library is a popular library activity, combining talent with tolerance. The first attempt of Chinese Living Library happened in 2009. The talents from creative class, writers, musicians, actors, sporters are invited by the library to share their experience and knowledge with the students as a book. 28 Chinese libraries have held living libraries out of 42 Chinese top university libraries, and many libraries work with student organizations together to organize these activities. The creative cultural products grow rapidly in Chinese libraries, becoming a popular product for patrons. Main types of library creative culture products include replicas of real books, souvenirs, art design works, and etc. Recently, technology-oriented products have sprung up like 3D printing. Study tour as a tool combined with experience education and research learning, mainly for primary and secondary school students. Many libraries are on the list of the study tour recommended by the Ministry of Education of China for libraries' abundant education resources. Many Chinese libraries design special study tour activities, exhibitions, lecturings to boost students' inspiration, knowledge, and creativity. The Intellectual Property Information Service. Chinese university libraries pay great attention on this service to promote the capacity for scientific and technological innovations for universities. The Alliance of University Intellectual Property Information Service Center was founded in 2018, and now more than 80 university libraries have established national intellectual property information service centers by 2020. The third part is the innovation against COVID-19 pandemic in Chinese libraries. On the technology, the infrared temperature detection technology and with the facial recognition help the libraries to detect the temperature of the users and their identification. And the driverless technology are used in book delivery to reduce the people conduct of infection. Online exhibitions and VR technologies is welcomed by students for great tourism depression caused by pandemic. To support research and study for the talent, libraries make contributions to collect and organize relevant electronic resources, established and develop the online course platform, Course, which allows patrons to access resource at any place with their authenticated accounts, is applied to remote access of electronic resources for its better using experience, access speed, and stability compared with VPN. And many Chinese libraries devoted themselves to fight against COVID-19 pandemic, making donations and volunteer work for local communities, online consultations with emails or communication apps 24/7. This is a bridge connecting the libraries, the researchers, and the local communities. Part 4. The rising or cooling for library creativity. Despite the rising of the creativity with the support of 3T, some people think we are on a cultural crash, the cooling of the creative class. When we focus on library, the debate still exists. There are some complaints that library is no longer a place for knowledge, but an amusement park for visitors. People can drink coffee, play pianos, even watch movies and sing songs. What's more, libraries are confronted with challenges from search engines and social media. People prefer to use Google Scholars instead of the service provided by libraries to search for the information. And some publisher services like Web of Science and Scoopers are welcomed too. So the research dependence on library resource is reducing as the change of using preference. On the background of rapid growth of open access resources, people are attracted to libraries for entertainment instead of research materials. Is the library essential for researchers in the future? A famous book in library, The 5 Laws of Library Science. The 5th law is the vital and lasting characteristics for a library. A library is a growing organism, and innovation is the engine for the growing organism. Thanks for your watching.
Thank you very much, Lingdan, for that really fascinating presentation. And I have to say I really do like the analogy as the library as an amusement park for visitors. I think that's fabulous. So I'm just going to check to see if there are any questions. We have a minute or two for any questions that anyone may have. I can't see any that have been added, but please do add any questions that you have. While we're waiting, Lingdan, I wondered if you might just tell us a bit more about the driverless technology for book delivery. So was this a common technology in China, and how did it work? Was it book deliveries from your library to home addresses of your students? How did it work?
Actually, it is not common in Chinese library. Within 5 university libraries have used these technologies. And my library, Shanghai Jiao Tong University library, has used this technology. We send the book to the student at university to their dormitory.
Wow, that's really exciting. That's a fantastic innovation. Congratulations. Now, I'm not seeing any more questions coming up, but if the audience does have any questions, please do add them, and I'm sure that Lingdan will be happy to answer any questions that you have. But thank you very much. Please join with me in thanking Lingdan by using your like button. That was a fantastic presentation and great to hear about what's happening in China. So we're going to move on to the last presentation in our session today, and we've got 2 speakers for this session. So the first is Christine Abrigo. Christine is involved in a number of leadership and management initiatives within her university in the fields of library information science and archival science, and her research interests include the nature of work and communicating value, learning organisation, library leadership and management, knowledge sharing, cultural heritage, and sound and image archival studies. And our second speaker is Efren Torres. So Efren is involved in managing academic special projects and library leadership in the Institute. His research interests include collection assessment, technological and spatial developments in medical libraries, and he believes that technology and innovation are important for libraries to flourish, especially in challenging times. And I think that really resonates based on the last presentation that we've had. Both Christine and Torres will be speaking to us on Face-to-Face with the New. So over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Good day, everyone. So before anything else, we'd like to thank Ayatul for for this opportunity to share our research study to this very prestigious annual conference. So Christine and I are here to present our paper, which is entitled, as shown in the screen, Face to Face with the New Libraries, Readiness, and Perspectives Towards a Changing Service Environment. Okay. So again, I'm Efren. I'm the Special Assistant to the Vice Chancellor for Academics in De La Salle Medical and Health Sciences Institute. And together with me is my colleague, Christine Abrigo, the Director of Libraries in De La Salle University. So we're both from the Philippines and we belong to the same De La Salle Philippines system of schools, DLSU for the information of everyone. De La Salle University is the first Lasallian school in the Philippines. And it's a hub for higher education training. It's renowned for its excellence in academics, research, and community service. On the other hand, my mother institution, the De La Salle Medical and Health Sciences Institute, is a full complement medical and allied health institution that provides holistic, excellent, and premium health professions education, healthcare, and research services. Next slide. Okay. This paper, our paper, employed the change readiness concept as a framework. Musselwhite and Plouffe in 2010 aptly defined change readiness as the ability to continuously initiate and respond to change in ways that create advantage, minimize risk, and sustain performance. There's actually two studies that supported this, the definition of Musselwhite and Plouffe. A study by Armenakis et al. And Repobs et al. Both studied agreed that there should be a clarity of definition between readiness for change from resistance to change. Not only is change readiness viewed as an intervention for minimizing change resistance, but it also has an impact on knowledge management or knowledge acquisition. It can also mediate the role between individual performance and the whole spectrum of total quality management. And most importantly, it can improve the organization's ability to adapt to change, as proven by the studies related with our paper. Next slide. Okay, so the new normal has changed the nature of work and services. And the library's readiness, considering these abrupt but mandatory changes, has challenged and influenced the response to meet the demands of the new service environment. Rapid changes or change affects libraries, whether it's direct or indirect, and that's why libraries of all types need to devote time to think about adapting to this kind of changes, whether it's pandemic triggered or not. So the current reality is that the world is not in the post-pandemic phase yet. So we're still in the pandemic. Adaptation to the new normal with its emerging processes will really take time, and things will never be the same as they used to be. So the focus of libraries on a global scale as the world ushers in the next new normal should be on how we meet the service demands and how ready are we in providing the perceived new needs of our community. Okay, next slide. For purpose and the objectives of our study. So our investigation has taken root in this question. So how ready are the libraries or library institutions in meeting the demands of the new service environment? So it's therefore seeks to probe into the library management strategies in coping with the sudden change to rapidly adapt to it. The initiatives they put in place as perceived new needs to their communities in the interim first, and that could possibly continue into the next phase. And of course, determining their readiness in the perceived changes in the service environment in the next normal future. Next slide. Okay. For our research objectives, we have three objectives, specific objectives. So the first one revolves around adapting to change. So we wanted to find out how the library management has adapted to the shift in their priorities and strategic plans to ensure meeting the emergent expectations and, of course, needs. If key skills, workforce, models, and support were studied for the new environment, services, programs, collections were realigned, if the spaces were reconsidered, if policies and processes were revisited, and of course, if upper management was involved and support was obtained. So for the second objective, this is more about change initiatives. So we wanted to determine what new collections, programs, services, and innovative library responses as perceived needs of the community, um, pandemic, and next normal. And the third final objective is we wanted to determine the state of readiness of the library institutions in dealing with the normal future. So this talks more about readiness to change. Next slide. Okay. So for the scope and limitation, the study was open to all types of libraries. So whether it's academic, school, public, or special as subjects. However, one-man libraries were excluded since variables pertinent to change readiness and adaptation would manifest thoroughly on a staff library organizations. The geography, on the other hand, of the respondents was disregarded, albeit it largely assumed that participants who would take part in the study would most likely, of course, come from our country, the Philippines. Library heads, meaning that whether depends on the title, if they're the director, the university librarian, the chief librarian, or the lead library manager, were the target respondents, as they are the ones leading and, of course, instituting change in their library organization. Hence, participation in this study should achieve one respondent per library only. So, being that the survey was conducted online, sampling to this study was self-selected. Hence, the respondent group is not a true representative of the target population. The study therefore analyzes results based on gathered data only. While there was no firm control over the respondents who accomplished the survey via social media and discussion groups, instruction to qualify the target group, meaning the library heads, and their organizational scope were detailed in the participation. Next slide. Okay. So we go now to the research methods. So number one, this is a quantitative design. The quantitative design was employed for this study, and a self-selection strategy as a non-probability sampling technique was used in collecting data from respondents. So this strategy was deemed applicable given that the survey was conducted online. So naturally, an online questionnaire was devised as an instrument for data gathering. So it consists of a combination of 5-point Likert scale and ranking to determine the levels of achievement pertaining to the library management, adaptation to change, and agreement in relation to change readiness. Number two, change readiness assessment tools were also studied to identify relevant skills to use for this instrument. And number three, control questions were generated by the authors, likewise based on the research objectives. The research was tested for validity and reliability using exploratory descriptive analysis and Cronbach's alpha. Data were analyzed using the SPSS software for exploratory descriptive analysis. And the online survey was sent directly to specific target respondents, as I mentioned a while ago. At the end of the survey period, responses from 76 head librarians representing their library institutions were retrieved as sample for the study. So, as you can see on the table, this is more about the demographics. So, majority of the respondents belonging to both private and public or government institutions have branch libraries. And then the next table would show that this reveals that respondents who belong to small library organizations follow a flat structure. On the other hand, hierarchical structure applies to all library sizes, with also a majority from small library organizations. Basically, a hierarchical structure often uses a top-down approach, which follows a long chain of command, with managers having, of course, a narrow span of control as opposed to a flat structure with few layers of management, short chain of command, and wide span of control. Organizational structure are akin to the size and type of institution or library. Now, for the next slides, particularly about the findings and conclusion, my colleague Christine shall explain and discuss them further. Christine?
Thank you, Efren. For the results of the study, we categorize them based on the research objectives. So naturally, there's 3, adapting to change, change initiatives, and the readiness to change. So let's take a look at adapting to change, which is aligned to research objective 1. At the onset of change, respondents were asked how they manage adapting to the changing service environment and up to what extent they were able to achieve their change initiatives. So the mean scores were calculated per item, wherein standard deviation indicated that responses were not widely distributed among the items. So this reveals that respondents have achieved quite a lot for each change initiative they undertook. And the management of libraries' performance and deliverables and ensuring the changes are cascaded down to the entire library team are noteworthy. In this figure, in terms of, it was analyzed in terms of organizational structure. Libraries who follow the hierarchical top-down structure have a high level of adaptability to change compared to those following the flat structure. So how is adapting to change in terms of the number of libraries within the institution? As visually depicted in this figure, a high level of adaptability to change is seen among respondents from only one main library. So interestingly, moderate to high adaptability to change levels are seen among respondents with branch libraries. So what about the library management adapting to change in terms of the size of library organization or the number of personnel? So there's a high level of adaptability to change seen among large-sized libraries, as visually depicted in this figure. From among the small and medium-sized libraries, adaptability to change is moderate to high. So we're done with adapting to change. Let's look at change initiatives, which is aligned with research objective number 2. Okay, while in the process of adapting to the current changes in the service and work environment, we asked the respondents how they prioritized in terms of importance their change initiatives. So these initiatives were perceived as new needs and expectations emerging from their change management coping. So by using Kendall's W coefficient of concordance, results in this table, as you can see here, show that statistically there is a general degree of agreement among respondents when they ranked the change initiatives. Note that the top 3 priorities, when they priorities relate to the application of and adeptness to digital technology, with upskilling and reskilling of staff on the use of technology being first priority, and the last priority being hiring and staff movements. So we also took a look at how ready are they with change. So this is research objective number 3. So respondents were asked. So we asked the head librarians about their readiness. How ready are they when it comes to the perceived changes in the next normal future service environment? So with the computed mean scores of the 17 change readiness attributes in this table, attributes yielded a standard deviation indicating closely distributed responses. This infers that respondents generally agree that they are ready to deal with the perceived future-wise changes in all aspects: personnel, administration, services, collections, programs, and physical facilities, including technology-enabled infrastructure. Furthermore, respondents strongly agree on the 3 highlighted items there, that they are ready to offer more flexibility in the implementation of their policies, reinvention of their strategies and priorities that will be adaptive to change, and that their librarians are ready to be more participative in the blended learning and teaching environment. Now, this figure visually depicts that libraries belonging to the private institutions. So we analyzed readiness to change based on the type of institution, private or public. And in this table, it says in this figure, it says that those belonging to the private institutions have a high level of readiness to change, while those belonging to the public government sector see a moderate to high levels of readiness. Okay, so we're still on readiness to change. We also looked at readiness to change in terms of organizational structure. So which one is more ready? So a high level of readiness to change is seen among libraries following a hierarchical structure compared to those in flat structure as visually presented here. And we also take a look how is readiness to change in terms of the number of libraries within an institution. So a high level of readiness to change is seen among respondents with branch libraries, while moderate to high levels of readiness is seen among respondents with only one main library. And lastly, we look at the readiness to change level in terms of the size of library organization. Okay, a high level of readiness to change is seen among medium-sized libraries, while the level of readiness among large and small-sized libraries is moderate to high. Okay. So we looked at the initiatives, we looked at their adaptability to change, the initiatives that they did, and how ready they are. And now we are now going to take a look at their adaptiveness and their readiness to change. Okay. So these are the comparisons now. It is apparent that upon immediate impact of change, library management's response was to ensure that they continue to support the needs of their community and at the same time assuring transparency within the library organization, to which the respondents of the study stated that they have achieved quite a lot in preparing to adapt to imminent changes. Support from upper management is also critical, which respondents have obtained quite a lot support, especially that the entire institution is now working together as one to achieve a single mission despite the disruptions. So this calls for a larger role for libraries, as the goal is to show how library programs and services, as well as the infrastructure itself, contribute to meeting the mission of the broader organization, as stated by Hernon and Schwartz in 2011. So transparency in work outputs and deliverables were emphasized because the libraries felt the need to show evidence for their accomplishments and communicating value to their community. What else does it say? So new processes and workflows need to be communicated to all members of the team as well, to ensure team productivity and for every member to be on the same page. This also tells us a lot about the saying, no one gets left behind. So it is important to keep everyone informed about the changes they are about to face, to which the respondents have also achieved quite a lot, if you recall the other table. So results reveal that libraries who follow the flat structure have a low level of adaptability to change. It is assumed with this that the head librarian does all the thinking or decision making top heavy, and making his or her team's adaptability to change poses a management challenge. On the other hand, results point out that all libraries regardless of size who follow the hierarchical structure see a high adaptability to change. So this presupposes that the head of a hierarchical organization is not burdened in terms of decision making, as he or she shares the responsibility with other team leaders compared to those leading a flat organization. Okay. Also, the findings show that the top 3 change priorities point towards involving the use of and being conversant with digital technology for obvious reasons. The use of technology in relation to the spike in remote learning and work operations is essential. This is also tied to the heavy use of digital resources, for which respondents rank redirection of their budget to strengthen their digital resources as second priority. And also
Sorry to interrupt you. We're going to have to finish up. Are you able to quickly summarize? please.
All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me skip to the conclusion now. Okay, what's the way forward? All right. Well, the pandemic is considered a high disruption for normalcy. We have to remember that disruptions can turn into great opportunities. So moving forward, post-pandemic, the study offers insights on the value of integrating measures pertinent to the emergence of new roles and needs in the changing service environment. So the results of the study are seen to have a potential contribution to the library organization's growth as they oversee their operations prospectively. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Efren and Christine. That was a really fascinating presentation, and I think shows the resilience of libraries and our ability to adapt. I'm afraid we don't have time for any questions, but I'm hoping Christine and Efren, and in fact all of the speakers from this session, might be in the lobby at some point during the conference, and I do encourage you to chat with them there. This has been a fabulous session. We've gone from New Zealand to China and the Philippines. It's one of the great things about IATL, hearing all of these diverse perspectives. Thank you very much, and please join us in the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.